like that bass line?
I like it.
And the bass line says it's time to go. It's RobLive here in the Chances Are Production Studios. I'm excited because we have a lot of experience behind the camera, of course, with Jim, but also in front of the camera today. It's not me. We have Sarah SOGHOMONIAN.
Hello, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Thank you for coming. I know now as an educator, right? Fridays are like...
I thought, why would you want me on your show? But hey, I'm used to being the one asking the questions. So today the roles are reversed.
I just feel like you have a lot to offer.
Well, thank you.
So,
I'm happy to be here.
Let's start from the beginning. Born Fresno, right?
I am a Fresno girl. I'm definitely born and raised Fresno. Grew up in the Sunnyside area. Great childhood in the late 80s, 90s. Big backyard, swimming in the pool.
Love it.
Just nothing like a summer in Fresno. I think so many of my childhood memories just go back to summertime, swimming pools, friends. Great childhood.
Sleepovers.
Yeah, great childhood.
When I think Sunnyside, I think about the drive-in. Was that still around? Sunnyside Drive-In?
I never experienced the drive-in. It may have been open when I was young.
Yeah.
But it was there. The sign was still there until I want to say maybe 15 years ago. It finally came down. So I definitely am familiar with the Sunnyside Drive-In.
And then the swap meet.
Yes,
right?
That was there. And now it's Amazon. So
Oh, it is?
there you go.
That's what happened to that. Now, the high school, where was that built?
Sunnyside High?
Is that
That's
in that same area where
that's
you grew up?
Near me, yeah. It's on Peach and Kings Canyon area. I went to the elementary school that's right across the street, Ayer Elementary. I was a Ayer Bear. Great elementary school. Ayer was a very top performing school for Fresno Unified, especially in the 90s. We had an outstanding principal. His name was Holland Locker. He worked his way up within Fresno Unified and unfortunately passed away from cancer at a fairly young age a couple years ago. But he had a stamp on that school and just really fun times at Ayer.
So great memories. And then you go to junior high.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to Computech.
Edison Computech?
I was a lot of kids. That's the thing about Sunnyside. I can't say that I grew up with the kids all the way through. And that's a story you'll get a lot from people from my community. But I went to Ayer, the local school, and then a lot of kids from my neighborhood in that time, you'd go to Edison Computech for middle school. And I was enrolled to go to Computech. And then on the very first day of school, I decided not to go. And I didn't want to take the bus. I don't know. You're 12. What do you know?
Yeah.
And I ended up going to the local middle school, which was at the time Kings Canyon Middle School.
I remember.
Yeah,
that.
and so I was a Kings Canyon Grizzly for 2 years.
So you went from Bear to Grizzly.
Yeah.
Okay. and then to Bullard.
Yeah, I had an interdistrict transfer. Good decision on my mom's part. I would have been the first graduating class of Sunnyside High. It wasn't quite open, though, my freshman year. I would have gone to Roosevelt for a year.
Rough Riders.
Then, my mom was a Rough Rider, class of 71, and she loved it. But it really wasn't the place for me. I didn't feel like I fit there. And middle school was kind of a tough time for me, late 90s. Kings Canyon was a little bit of a rough environment for me, but I will say I had excellent educators there. I always say you can get a good education anywhere if you apply yourself.
Thank you for saying that.
Anywhere. And I had great teachers at Kings Canyon, and they had a GATE program, and I had wonderful teachers who I still keep in touch with. Alice Pollock, my science teacher, Miss Connolly. I mean, the list goes on and on. Miss Pasquale, they were great people. They had a performing arts program that...
so does Roosevelt, right?
Yeah, so that fed into it. So Mr. Crawford was his name. He did a performing arts program.
Did you get involved?
I was involved in...
Drama?
It was dancing, and I'm not much of a singer or dancer, but it was a really fun class to be in. We performed down in Southern California, and
what?
Yeah, and the news came out once. I remember Kenny Crumpton on Channel 47 came and did a whole live broadcast from our school. So I ended up years later working at 47. So it's funny how things are connected. But went to Kings Canyon and From there, I got a transfer for high school, and I went to Bullard High, and I loved Bullard. I'm a proud Knight. I was on the
Bullard
tennis
Knights,
team.
that's right. Blue and light blue,
tennis.
right? Is that
Yes,
the
blue,
combo?
light blue.
Kind of like the Visalia
little
Rangers,
white in
Redwood.
there as well. And great experience at Bullard. Good teachers, good people. It was a different environment. It's never easy being the new kid, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom would drive me, every day. And eventually I got my license, and then I started driving myself. But yeah, the freeway didn't even come out to Clovis Avenue back then. First year there was no 180,
Oh, man,
so
you
you
go
had
way
to
back.
take 41 the first year. Then eventually the 180 came to Chestnut and made the commute a little bit better. But yeah, I had a unique, I think, perspective being from the sunny side, southeast Fresno area, and then going to Bullard. A little bit different, but it was a good
lot
thing.
different.
A lot different. The demographics.
Sarah's being nice. A little different.
Demographics were a bit different back then,
Yeah.
and but it was a good thing for me.
So now, given that we're all, including Jim here, high school teachers, right? I always think back, like when I see fellow teachers, like, who were they in high school? Who was their crowd? What were their activities? Like for me, example, I was like the social butterfly type, did the football thing, played soccer. So I was kind of into sports and organizing parties. That was Who were you in high school?
Well, I loved high school. I loved school. I was a school kid. I never missed a day of school, kindergarten through 12th grade.
What?
Fun fact.
How?
I'd go to school sick.
I always wonder about those kids. Like, who are you?
I was that kid. I loved school. I still love school.
You just power through it, flew?
I loved school. I loved learning. I just loved the environment. I'm an only child. I liked being around people.
Yeah.
I loved school. So school was a happy place for me. I was never a star in high school academically. I did well. I was like a 3.8 type student, but I struggled
really well.
I struggled in like sciences and foreign language and stuff like that. But I was a good student. But at Bullard, you had a lot of great students. And so I was never like that valedictorian level, but I took honors classes and some AP classes and all of that. So I was definitely studious, but I like to have fun. I played high school tennis, which was a really great experience.
Tennis coach.
There you go.
Did you know he was a tennis coach?
I didn't know that. James.
Yes, first year.
He played tennis as well in high school, right?
That's awesome.
Orosi Cardinals.
Yep.
Man, go Orosi. So I did that. I tried to get involved. I'd go to the dances and
I want to say ASB. Yeah, no.
That's a funny story, actually.
I would have pegged you 100% ASB. Organize, produce, put together.
I should have been in ASB. I have a bone to pick with them about that.
Oh, they didn't pick you.
No, Bullard was a very cliquey school, and especially in that time, I graduated in the early 2000s. It was a cliquey place, and I wasn't from the area, and so I think I missed out on some opportunities because of that, unfortunately, including being part of leadership.
They missed out on you. Bullard High School, if you're watching this.
But guess who helps plan the reunions
Exactly.
now?
Look, the planner is right here, the producer.
I helped plan the reunions, but I wasn't in leadership.
The visionary.
But no, I wasn't. But I knew all those kids, and I liked
so you
high
applied,
school.
and they just said,
I didn't make the cut, I guess.
What?
I didn't make the fashion show either.
Who were your friends?
I had.
Were they the SB kids? Were they the academic kids?
A lot of my friends are still my friends today. Some of my closest friends in life, I'm been friends with since high school. So
that is
my doubles,
that's special.
My doubles tennis partner is still one of my closest friends. One of my high school best friends is still one of my best friends today. So I've got great friendships. I floated a little bit, especially that first year or two, meeting people. Because I was the new kid, but I found my people, and we were always involved. We were involved. Like I ran for class office. I always tried things. Even I ran for office in elementary school, middle school, high school. I never won an election. I don't know. But I ran and I tried. And if I didn't make it, I didn't cry about it, and I didn't not go to school the next day. I just feel like that. I feel like some of those failures that I faced, not making a team or not getting picked for something or feeling like I didn't fit in, made me who I am today.
Feel the fire.
And I like to, as a high school teacher, use that as a experience. Like I talk to my students about that. I think you learn from failure. It's okay to fail.
Yeah.
It's okay to not get picked.
Amen.
And how you recover, how you respond makes a big difference. You know, I never wanted to peak in high school. I loved school. But if you peak at 16 or 17, you got a long life ahead of you. So you need to
we know those guys.
You need to do well, enjoy it, go to the things. I always tell my students, go to the things, go to the dance. Formal was last week. I pushed them, go to the dance, because you will regret not making those memories.
Yeah.
But no, I wasn't the most popular kid in school. I knew them all. They knew me. But I just kind of was involved, but in the middle, I guess you could say.
Okay, that's kind of where I had you. I don't know why the ASB thing didn't happen. That should have happened.
Yeah, man. I brought it up to the lady years later. I still
got a bone to pick.
A bone to pick.
So, okay, so now balancing that with home life. I know just from stalking you on Facebook that you have a large connection to your Armenian culture. I know you were like gathering baked goods for some event recently. How did that play into your childhood? Like, was there a lot of festivals? Was your mom and dad really getting you immersed in that whole culture?
Yeah, I'm 100% Armenian. I'm proud to be Armenian. We have a large Armenian population here in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
I
don't know why I didn't notice that earlier.
Being Armenian is a huge part of who I am. And I've grown up around Armenian culture. Summertime, we have our picnics that we have. And I'm in the Ladies Guild at Holy Trinity Armenian Church. I write their newsletter every month. I grew up going to Vacation Bible School at First Armenian Press. I mean, all of that has played a big role in who I am. I am proud to be Armenian, and I love my culture. Fresno we have about 50,000 Armenians here.
Wow.
In the Central Valley. I did so before I became a teacher, I was a television producer, and I produced a documentary about the Armenian genocide in 2015.
Oh, I got to see that.
Yeah, it was called Valley of Hope.
Where can I find that?
It was for PBS. It's called Valley of Hope, the Armenian journey from terror to triumph. I produced it in 2015 for PBS, and I learned a lot about my culture, even more doing that documentary, and it's full of faces and stories of local people, people you'll recognize. Stephanie Barugian is in it. I went to the local lavash company, and they showed us how they make the breads and just different things. The churches, the Armenian Community School is part of it. But the idea was to show how Armenians got to the Central Valley and what happened once they were here, the challenges they faced. Like any culture, there's discrimination and prejudice and challenges. You couldn't, be a member at Sunnyside Country Club until like the 60s. You couldn't buy a home. I grew up in Sunnyside. My grandparents were one of the first people to buy land to build a home in Sunnyside. There was a no Armenian clause up until the late 50s. So
no, any of this.
It was really neat to be able to do that documentary, and Armenians are prideful people, and I have a lot of pride, and 100% Armenian. My mom's family, my mom's grandparents, so my great grandparents, on both her mother and father's side came here prior to the genocide. So before 1915, late 1800s, my great grandfather came through Ellis Island and came straight to Fresno. My grandfather's father and mother, and then my grandmother on my mom's side family came to the Detroit area, and they lived in Detroit. My grandma was born in Detroit, and then eventually came to the Tulare County area, Yedem, Visalia, and all that. Yeah, go get them in Yedem. And so my mom is second generation Armenian American. My grandparents were born here, but my great grandparents came over through Ellis Island. And then my dad's story is quite different. He was born in Kesab, Syria. Kesab was a Armenian community. It still exists, though it's a lot smaller now in Syria. And he was born there, lived there till 1969, and then came over to Fresno directly with his brothers. He was the oldest, and then his parents as well, and settled here in Fresno. And typical immigrant story. Came here, didn't speak English, uh, didn't know how to
Yeah.
drive, got a job at Pepsi Cola, walking. He walked there every day, eventually learned how to ride the bus, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually, got into farming, and, his brother's a doctor, and his other brother's a business owner, and the other one's in
It's
the Rosie
amazing.
School District. So, and it was a Marine. So, typical immigrant story.
Work ethic,
Prideful people.
zero excuses.
Yeah, exactly. So, all of that I think makes me who I am. Played a big role in my life.
Yeah. And I think when you get the chance to do that type of research and look back at the family, right, you are able to pull these things and then kind of apply them to your own life. And I know for me personally, whenever I hear a hardship story about family and then things get tough for me, I was like, the healthy thing for me is like to compare and say, okay, I'm struggling with, X, Y, or Z, and they came here with nothing and figured it out. I think I can figure this out, right? Provides perspective.
My grandpa grew up, my mom's dad. I was very close with my mom's parents. They were like second parents to me. I grew up down the street from them. My grandpa would talk about growing up in Easton. He went to Washington Union, and how he'd get up in the morning and milk the cows, and his mom, they struggled quite a bit. We're talking, post, World War II times, post Great Depression. My grandfather was born in 1932. How they would, use the milk from the cow to make the cheese, and my grandma would sell cheese to make money, and all of that. So just the struggles that people faced, and all of that, and then the success that eventually came for his family. It's really, I have good roots. Very proud of where I come from.
Oh, it sounds like it. And I think that another thing that it helps for me personally to hear these stories is to have that patience to allow something to happen, to believe in a process and say, hey, listen, you're selling cheese today, right? But 5-10 years down, you're owning the business, you're running the dairy. And to have that vision, to be able to trust that that's what it's going to lead to, instead of saying, I sell cheese and I don't know where this is going to go. And I feel like my perspective has kind of been a little skewed, that I want to take more shortcuts because, I didn't go through that process. And so there's times when I jump the gun and say, oh no, Sarah, I'm 6 months into this thing and it hasn't blown up yet. And it's like, 6 months, you talk to some of the older generation, like 6 months is like, you're just getting started, brother. Like, slow down. And so for me, it provides a lot of perspective when I hear these stories. So I appreciate you sharing.
Good things come to those who wait. And if it's
there, it is.
I really am a believer. If it's meant to be, it will be. You have to just have patience.
Yeah.
And good work ethic. Keep it going and follow your gut instinct. If you get that, like I tell my students, if you get that funny feeling in your tummy that this isn't the right thing, it probably isn't the right thing.
Thank you for sharing that. Advice live right here. Thank you. So I want to step into the whole Fresno State era, because I know that you are Bulldog proud.
Yeah, Bulldog born, Bulldog bred.
That is, and that's holds a special place in my heart, because even though I didn't go to Fresno State, growing up in the Valley, we'd go to the games as kids. And that was the one thing that my father and I had in common, was football. And so we'd show up to the games. And I mentioned this with the Marcus McMarion episode, who was the QB. I told him, Marcus, at one time before you were born, there were no seats near the end zones. It was grass area. And so you could buy a ticket for $5 and sit in the grass. And that's where I grew up, in the grass there. And then I grew up going to the Selland Arena for basketball games.
Me too.
Right? And so even though I didn't graduate there, I'm really connected to Fresno State. And even when I was living in Los Angeles or the Bay Area, I'd wear the jerseys and everybody like, what are you doing? Like, is that a David Carr jersey? That's where I'm from. And so I can really connect, and I see you that you have a big pride in that. And to be able to go to that school, what was that experience like, being a Bulldog?
Well, from an athletic standpoint, I grew up with Fresno State sports. So Fresno State sports has been a huge part of my life. My grandfather was a Bulldog supporter. He was the president of the Timeout Club. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and just very involved with Fresno State athletics. So I grew up with Fresno State athletics. I would go to tailgates when I was 5 years old. they would KMJ used to be the
KMJ
was what the Bulldogs played on, and we would get invited to the KMJ tailgates, and so I grew up going to the tailgates and timeout.
Were you meeting the players and stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely with basketball, football, not so much growing up meeting the players, but I grew up going to tailgates and going to Fresno State games, and Jim Sweeney actually lived down the road from my grandparents.
Kevin
so like
Sweeney.
I knew Jim Sweeney. I went to his house as a kid. He lived down the road. So Jim Sweeney, and then of course Pat Hill, and most of my football memories are during the Pat Hill years.
Yeah, I loved Pat
I was
Hill.
older for that, and that was when I was in high school, middle school, high school, and beyond. I went to the 05 game at USC. To me, that's still like, I was in college at that time. That's still one of my greatest memories.
05 game, which I think I was there.
That's the famous Fresno State game when we almost beat the #1 team in the country.
No, we won that game.
No, we lost.
You know why?
Because they was forfeited.
Thank you very much.
Because they cheated.
No, I'm going to hang on to that. Reggie Bush, who won on the cutback, the Heisman, in that moment, should have never happened. Mm-hmm. Am I right?
Well, it does have an asterisk, and they did take his Heisman away, so maybe we did technically win. But I mean, so football, huge part. I remember the Freedom Bowl and all of that.
Freedom Bowl.
And then basketball. I've been to so many basketball games, and Selland Arena, the Tark years, even before that, the Gary Colson years. Like, I went to those games, but Tark, my grandpa would go on a lot of the away games, travel with the team, and I met all the players and would go to the fundraising events.
Oh,
and
exciting.
So basketball was huge. Chris Herron,
that's right.
Like, those were just Larry Abney and just all the players, and just I grew up with that. It's a huge part. You'd go. I loved Selland Arena. You'd go eat dinner at the Galleria, George's. There was a Japanese place in there too, and I would we'd eat, and then we'd walk over to the Selland Arena. And even before that, there used to be the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And you'd go to farmer's market, and you'd get your barbecue beef sandwich. And then
it's the whole experience,
experience. So to me, it's like I light up just talking about it. Sadly, I don't feel that same energy at the Save Mart Center, but
it's just so big.
That's just another conversation. But I love Fresno State and baseball too. And, we were season ticket holders for that, and College World Series. So sports, love the sports. Can't say enough about the sports. I throw a good tailgate. When I worked at 47, I was known for my tailgates.
Do you still do that?
Not as much as I used to.
We're about to invite ourselves at some point.
She's talking the truth there. They were really good.
Were they?
Yep.
Let's bring them back.
They're good. But yeah, so I'm thinking about it. But love all that. And then as far as college went.
I have a name I want to throw out.
Okay.
Ready? Dr. Gary Rice.
Oh, you did do your research.
I tried. Well, I had to impress you guys. I told Jim I got to impress. So talk to us about Dr. Gary Rice.
Yeah, so I love Dr. Gary Rice the best. So I was a MCJ major, Mass Communications and Journalism. They've changed the name of it now. It's, I think, Media Communications and Journalism. But in my day, it was Mass Communications and Journalism, and my emphasis was broadcast journalism. I went to Fresno State. It was really the only school I applied to.
That was your dream?
No, I wouldn't say it was my dream. I just always knew I was going to go to Fresno State. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't exposed to enough. I think if I had seen maybe USC or UCLA sooner and actually seen it, maybe some of that would have made me want to go there.
Yeah.
But I grew up going to Fresno State games. My mom went to Fresno State.
Seemed kind of wrong if you'd be anywhere else.
I would go to the vintage days and see the campus, and I just always envisioned myself going there. And so went to Fresno State right out of high school, and I went in not quite knowing what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an attorney, and I still think I would have made a great attorney.
Never too late.
But I never pursued it. I took a few poli-sci classes, and I just never ended up going that route. And I took an MCJ class, an intro class, and I always loved TV. I loved media. I loved Hollywood. I wanted to be like a sports reporter. I love sports. And so anyhow, I took a class. I fell in love with it. I stuck with the major. And then I met Dr. Gary Rice, and he was my MCJ 10 professor, and he taught me everything I know. I know how to, I'm a great writer. I am very confident in my writing skills, and I owe him for a lot of that. Did a lot of print journalism. Even though I was a broadcast major, I did a lot of print work because he was so connected with that, and would work with Dick Shepherd. Rest in peace, Dick. Great mentor of mine. He was with the Sanger Herald. So I would write for the Sanger Herald and the Madera Tribune and the Visalia Times Delta and the Tulare County In Style magazine. And so when I graduated from Fresno State, I had already had like 100 stories published, all because of Rice, who I keep in touch with. He lives in Texas.
I was going to ask you.
Oh yeah, we write letters to each other, and great man. Really taught me a lot. And then it was tough. He was tough. People were scared to take his class because he'll give you a 0. I got a 0. I'm not the greatest speller. I put Federal Aviation Admission instead of Federal Aviation Administration. He gives you a 0.
Wow.
Yeah, he's tough, but that's what you need.
You want to be pushed.
That's what you need. And so great experience there. All my professors, James Wilson was the broadcast teacher, professor. Betsy Hayes was the public relations. She's still there. Just really good people who believed in me, who pushed me.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, I was a good student in high school, but I never felt like I was a great student, even though I did well in school. But Bullard, like I said, Bullard had really smart people, and I just was not on that level. That I didn't feel like I was on that level. But in college, I excelled. And so I proudly will say I graduated summa cum laude. I did see that. I was outstanding department graduate for my year. And it was 2007 I graduated. And it was a very exciting time in my life. And I did really well in college and worked with a lot of people. We did a sports show, Bulldog Sports Report. The host of it that I went to college with done really well for himself. His name was Guy Haberman.
Where's he at now?
I haven't talked to him in years, but he's a big time sports guy, Bay Area. Does like college sports on TV.
With Raj?
He does like for CBS Sportsnet and big stuff. But we were in school together. We had a little show.
That's cool to see him.
Sports Report. So there were people wanting that. There was a Brian Callahan. He ended up in Las Vegas.
I do know that name.
He was at KMPH at one time too. So there were good people in that program. Brian Harley runs CMAC now. He graduated with me. So we had a good group, and we kind of all sort of supported each other and did these random shows. There was an art show we did. Mr. Priest, Professor Priest, he wanted to do this art show. We did that, and I loved the MCJ department. I liked, the negative of Fresno State being from Fresno was it felt at times like a commuter school because you go home, you go to school. If you don't live there or you're not in a sorority or fraternity, but the MCJ really is where I found my niche. And
did you ever do the dorm thing?
No, I kind of regret that. I
advise all my kids.
I tell my students that now that I never did, I say I wish I had. I think I would have had a more of a college experience. When I did Fresno State Focus, which is the school newscast, I did a story about dorm life. Yeah. And you realize that it isn't just a commuter school, that there's people from all over California and really internationally as well that come to Fresno State and they live in the dorms. And if you're there, you will meet people. Yeah. And there's a big Greek life, but I wasn't, that's not my scene. I rushed. I quit on the third day. Some girl came up to me.
Yeah, tell me about the rush.
Oh gosh, you got to see all the houses. I'm still glad I did it because I got to see all the houses. But
what are the challenges, or what do you have to do?
It's just not my scene. They sing, they dance, and some girl was like, "This is my eyeshadow collection," and we'll be in each other's weddings and do each other's hair and makeup. And I don't know, it was a little too much for me. Maybe it's the only child in me, but I don't know. I kind of just didn't feel like I fit in that world. And then there were girls in one sorority, and I had known some of them from past just experiences, and I'm like, you weren't that friendly to me in real life, and now I'm gonna pay to be your friend. I don't know. So I wasn't a Greek person. I support, if that's people's things, good for them. I know a lot of people have found best friends for life, and that's fabulous, but I never went that route, and I wasn't much of a partier at all in college.
High school or college?
Yeah, no, I wasn't a partier at all.
Did you ever attend Any official college party?
I've been to parties, of course,
but it just wasn't
that
your
wasn't
scene.
my scene. It's still really never been my scene. I mean, I like to go out and have a good time, but that's not really who I am. So, I just don't feel comfortable in those settings really. I'm very social, but
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a time and a place. So that was never really my place.
No, I get that. The dorm thing, yeah, I'll back you on that. My two best friends I met in the dormitory at Menlo College.
Oh, that's a beautiful school.
You know Menlo.
I know.
Menlo and London to
I
me
know
are like
someone who went there.
really.
Yeah.
Okay, I played college soccer there at Menlo.
Yeah, that's a beautiful area.
And yeah, the dorm that was
no.
like
That's how you meet people.
Yeah.
I would go. My two best friends from high school went to Cal Poly, and so I would go stay in their dorm and their
nice.
campus apartment, and I got to at least experience that a bit, and so that was fun for me. And I liked those. I got to at least try it. I remember showering in the dorms there, and so at least I can say I did it.
Got to wear sandals.
Yeah, so that was a fun experience for me to at least try it out.
Okay, so you get through college, and now you're out in the world. What's Sarah's next move?
Well, I had an amazing internship. I interned, and I always encourage people to intern. It's harder now to intern. Rules in California make it harder with workers' comp and pay and blah, blah, blah. But I interned at ABC 30.
Nice.
In 2006 and 7.
Just went for it. Where's the biggest station in town? I'm going.
Well, I was lucky enough to intern there.
Good for you.
I had an outstanding experience, and I met a lot of people who are still there. Warren Armstrong and Graciela Moreno. And for me, the highlight, I used to, Nancy Osborne was the anchor there.
Osborne.
And I learned a lot from Nancy Osborne and really kind of looked up to her as a mentor. And she was great. She's still with us, but not on the news. And anyhow, I learned a lot from her, and I would go with her and job shadow her, and she did a big interview with Alan Autry, who was the mayor at the time, and I helped do the research for it. And
I'm sorry, I always think Bubba from
right.
What's the show called? Still at Night, or do you remember that show, Jim?
Yeah.
What was the show called?
I think it was Still
in the Heat of the Night.
Heat of the Night, Bubba. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, he's Bubba's. They say you'd find him at the Starbucks. That was where he would.
That was his hangout.
He was a good mayor. I think Alan Autry,
is he still around?
He's still here yet, but I really think, looking back, I think Alan Autry was a good mayor. That was when we got Fresno got that award, best little
town.
Got that award still on the garbage cans in 2000. I think we got some award for being a good city. Anyhow,
I'm glad to hear some positive press, and I'm just gonna share something with you real quick. And I don't know if you heard this, but I was kind of offended. I don't know how you felt about this, Jim, but I'm watching, this is about 10 years ago now. I'm looking at different podcasts, and Joe Rogan, you know how they do the little snippets on YouTube, and he's like, I went to this soul food restaurant, right? Have you seen this one?
Oh, is he talking about the place downtown?
Chef Paul's.
Yeah, Chef Paul's.
But when he's referencing, he's trying to remember, he's like, what's that terrible little dirty town out in the, so just nothing. He just goes off about Fresno for 5 minutes. He goes, yeah, Fresno, that was it, Fresno. Anyway, they have Kool-Aid at this place. I'm like, wait, hold up, Joe. You just went off on Fresno for like 20 minutes. Like, relax.
Fresno's a great place. And if it was so bad, people wouldn't always come back. And you know what? More and more people are coming here from the Bay Area and Southern California and establishing lives for themselves in Fresno. I love Fresno. I'm a big advocate for our town. Sure, we've got problems here and there, but
every town does.
But every place does. And what a community. And people care about each other. They support each other. They're there for each other. We're small enough that we still have that old school feel in a way, and we're big enough that we have resources
and diversity, like you were saying earlier.
Very much. And I love the diversity of our town. I think, being again Sunnyside area, it's very diverse, and I've always grown up with diversity, and I embrace the diversity, and it's and hey, it makes for great restaurants. We've got some of the best food around.
I was going to bring that up. Okay, so I went to this place when I was in high school. My brother took me, and I didn't know what kind of food it was or what I was having. And then I leave to college, and I start realizing, hey, we had some stuff in Fresno. It's a Basque restaurant.
Santa Fe Basque?
Is that what it's called? It's kind of near
Maroa?
Downtown Fresno area.
Oh, well, Shepherd's Inn.
Is that what it was?
Unfortunately, I don't think they do the Basque anymore. But yeah, Shepherd's End was great. I did actually a PBS special there about Shepherd's End. We did a whole food segment about maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shepherd's End, I don't think they do the Basque anymore, but you can still get Basque at Santa Fe Basque
Impressive.
on Maroa.
Okay, I'm gonna go back.
Shields. Hey, I know Fresno. I
You
know.
do. I'm gonna hit you up.
Well, when I graduated from Fresno State at the graduation ceremony, they talked. It was the former editor of the Fresno Bee that gave out the awards, and he said that what made me special was what the professors had said was no one knew Fresno as well as I did. It's a hidden secret. I think I'm one of the, I would say I'm a little Fresno expert, especially for my age. So I know Fresno. Old school stuff, new school stuff. I feel like I have a good read on this town.
Good. And I'm going to share one with you that you already know then, and it just like blew my mind when I found this out. So again, I leave to the Bay Area, right? But I'm coming home, commuting, hanging out, and I don't know a whole lot about Fresno because as a kid, I was kind of confined to certain places that my parents used to go to, Ole Frijole, the Catholic Church, etc. So I come back and I hear this talk about an underground garden, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, underground? There's a website, and I'm like, it's on Shaw. Where on Shaw? And so I find this,
Forest Steers underground.
Yeah, and so when I get there, there's people from Germany, right? From Japan, like, what do you guys do? How do you guys know this place? They're like, oh, yeah, no. People come from all over the place. And the guide says that Leonardo DiCaprio flew in with his girlfriend at the time. What's Tom Brady's?
Giselle.
Yeah. He was dating her. They flew in for a tour.
Wow.
Right? And most Fresnans,
myself included, have never. I know all about it. I know.
Oh.
I know. It is sad. I've never been. I know. Can you believe that?
You're not the only one. I haven't been there either.
What are you guys?
Even like through all the new stuff I've done. God. I've never. I know about it. I can picture it. I knew I know all about it.
You got to go Sunday. You got to take your parents. I want to see it on Facebook because they have something that I've never heard of. A strawberry tree.
It's the one in the inside, right?
Petrified strawberry tree. I didn't even know there was like.
It's a neat thing. I've never been though.
What?
I know it's crazy.
I hate to say this, Sarah, because there was one time we were going to cover the story when the high-speed rail was supposed to go through there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm actually going to cover a story and actually see it," and we never went.
Just go on Sunday.
I still haven't seen it.
Well, I would say Super Bowl Sunday.
I think it's like crazy that. Oh, I don't think it's. Oh, you know what? I did some research because I was going to go to it.
Yeah.
And it's not open. I don't think it's open in the winter.
Oh, okay. Well, that would make sense.
But I've never been.
Okay. We're waiting for it.
I know. I've never used an ATM
I'm gonna wait. What?
I've never used an ATM.
Then how do you?
I go into the bank. I know. I'm weird.
Wow, we're learning a lot about Sarah today. Wow. Okay. All right.
But it's funny because we're so close to home, but some people haven't even been to Yosemite.
Yeah,
that I've done.
Yeah, okay, I've got to take my fam. I'm sorry. I've got to take the fam.
Though I had never been to Shaver Lake until like 4 years
saw that.
ago.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but yeah, I saw that.
I had never been. Bass Lake, but never Shaver.
Yeah, I'd never been to Bass until like 2 summers ago.
I've done Bass many a time, but never had done Shaver. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
But I have now. But I've only been to Shaver Lake once, and it was for like a random little day trip.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this up. I don't want to offend you with this, but it's just common knowledge amongst the regular folk who aren't in TV. We don't quite know what a producer does. We're not saying you don't do anything, but when we see the credits, cameraman, oh, okay. TV show host, got it. Producer, we don't. So break it down for us, the regular folk. What does a producer do?
A producer does it all.
Oh,
so,
you hear that, James?
I concur.
But
we don't know.
And whether or not your show that you're watching is good or not, a lot of it falls on if you had a good producer or not. So producing, I never thought I'd be a producer. So
yeah.
I'm a good writer. So like I was saying earlier, I did the writing thing. And I graduated from Fresno State. I interned at Channel 30. And I wanted to be on air. I wanted to be a reporter.
You did?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a reporter. But I also didn't want to leave Fresno. So back then, now they pull you out of high school and they practically put you on TV. But when I graduated in 2007, it was right before the recession. And so back then, to get an on-air job in Fresno, we're market size 54, we're a medium-sized market, you would need minimum 2 years experience on air before they would even look at your tape. So that means you'd got to go to like Chico, Redding, Yuma, Arizona, Bend, Oregon, do your time, get your experience, then come back to Fresno. At the time, Channel 30 was hiring a first ever going to have a traffic reporter. And I was an intern, and everyone there was like, oh, Sarah, you're going to get the job. You're going to get the job. I did not get the job.
Okay, Bullard High and Channel 30, you're on the hit list now.
Well, no, it's okay. Everything happens for a reason. So I didn't get it. I was surprised I didn't get it. It is what it is. They didn't even end up keeping that position. But anyhow, I didn't get the job, and I graduated in May, and I spent that summer doing some writing. And so I was writing for different publications, and being Armenian, I was doing some stuff for this Armenian Reporter magazine, newspaper. And so they had me go to Valley Public Radio to interview the CEO at the time, who was Armenian. Stepanian was her last name. Miriam Stepanian. So I went to interview her, and when I was there interviewing her, she told me, hey, we need somebody to produce a radio show that we do, like a news radio, kind of like what we're doing here. It was called Valley Live, or I don't know. It was like a public affairs type show. And so it was just a part-time summer gig really for me, but that was my first real taste of producing. I had done some producing in college, but did that, and there was a big national story that hit in Fresno. The war was going on, Iraq, Afghanistan in that time, and the Hubbards, the boys from Buchanan, the second Hubbard boy had passed. And that was a big national story because it was 3 brothers, and the other brother was also in combat, and they were bringing the third brother back because they didn't want anything
Saving Private Ryan?
Pretty much. So it was a big national story. And so I was working for Valley Public Radio at the time, just part-time, dabbling in it. But the Bay Area public radio station, which is one of the biggest in the country, KQED, wanted sound from the press conference. And so they called Valley Public Radio. Valley Public Radio sent me to get the sound. Things are a lot different now with the technology and this and that, how they do feeds. But I went to the press conference, which all kinds of media was there, local media, LA, Bay Area. There was all this media there, and I'm there to get the sound to provide KQED with the footage that they wanted. And while I was there, a reporter from Channel 47 was there, who I knew from growing up, but also from my internship at Channel 30. And she told me, hey, Sarah, we're hiring a producer at CBS 47. You should apply for it.
This was in Angela? Or?
No. And so anyhow, I applied for this producer job, not even knowing what I was getting myself into. And I applied, and I interviewed for it, and it was for the morning show. And wow, so I applied for it. I remember going for the interview with Chad McCollum, who was the assistant news director at the time, who later became the news director. And he told me the hours, and it was midnight to 9 a.m. You're producing the morning show. And I was kind of freaked out by the hours, but I thought, hey, this is my big break. This is an opportunity. I'm a writer. It's a local job. Let's do it. So I took the job, and I started in November of 2007, and my shift was midnight to 9 a.m., and I was one of 2 producers at the time doing the morning show, and my job was the 6 a.m. hour. And so the gal I worked with, Lindsay, she did the 5 a.m. hour, and she'd come in at 11. I'd come in at midnight. And as a producer, you write the news in this size market. It depends on the market size. We're a medium-sized market. So here you don't have a writer. There's no one helping you. The producer does the writing. In LA, market size 2, the producer is got writers that like assist them. But here, that's not the case. So if you're a producer, your job is to write the news and format the news. So you're organizing the newscast. So what does the viewer going to see first? What's the second story going to be? What's the third story going to be? And we call those blocks. So A block is the beginning of the newscast. You go to commercial, then you go to B block.
Yeah.
Then C block usually has weather in it. Then go to commercial. D block. If it's a nighttime show, there's usually an E block with a kicker. And so you pick your stories. You got to have a mix. You got to know your audience. So you need a good producer knows their audience. So you're going to pick stories to put in your newscast that relate to your community. So local news, morning show, you're picking a mix of stories that happened overnight that your photographer, in this case, James was a photographer, night side photographer. So he would have gone out, let's say there was a crime that was committed or whatever. He went with a reporter. They shot footage. They come back to the station. There's a tape at the time. I don't even think we were on SD cards. We were on...
It was DVC Pro.
Yeah, DVC Pro tapes. Yeah. And you'd listen to it, pick the sound bite, and you'd write the story, all right, that they left you. So you're getting a mix. A morning show's getting a mix of stuff that's been left over from the night before, press releases that have been brought in that you're reading and you're previewing what's going to happen today. Oh, there's a ribbon cutting at this business, or the city of Fresno's going to be having a meeting at City Hall at such and such a time. So you're looking back on the night before and you're previewing the day ahead. And it's a morning show, so you want it to be kind of light and fun as well. And we bring guests on, and producers sometimes are the ones booking those guests. And
I remember anytime I did the Library for London stuff, it was always the producer, Andrea Bressel.
Yeah, I worked with her actually at Channel 18.
So I'm gonna do a little insider for the regular people out here who do not work in the industry. Here's a little secret about Fresno that I didn't know. Most of us don't know. So I go in for the Library for London thing. We'll talk about that later. But I'm trying to do that nonprofit thing, right? And we're going to different channels. And so I go in with Andrea, and I believe it was 47.
At the time, she's at 30 now, but at the time she's at 47. And prior to that, I worked with her at 18. So it's all connected, yeah.
So we're there, and we do the interview. And then she says, hey, would you like to do something with our sister station? I go, oh, who's that? It's like 24. And I go, oh, okay, yeah, how far away is it? And she opens this door, and on the other side of this set was a 24 set. And I'm like, wait, you're in the same building. Your studios
That's called a duopoly, and I never worked.
So regular people have no idea.
Yeah, that's a tragedy if you ask me. But
true.
Wait, I don't. What's that? Wait, I don't
that's
get
why
it.
James and I aren't in TV anymore.
Yeah, that actually is a good point. Yeah.
Wait, what's tragic about
Oh, that's not a good thing. So I got a job at Channel 47. I did the morning news. We were successful on the morning show, but then the recession hit. So TV pre-recession and TV post-recession, James, wouldn't you say are two different things?
Totally, yeah.
So that was to save money.
So I got to, well, that's even after. So I got hired pre-recession, like right before the recession. So when I get hired, there's like big name anchors still at 47. Like John Wallace is the anchor.
Yeah.
Kevin Musso did weather. It was that era still existed. And then the recession hits in 2008. And so when I started the morning show in November of 2007, I'm one of two producers. There were 3 photographers on the morning show. There was 2 reporters on the morning show. There were 2 editors on the morning show, 2 anchors plus weather. And then Rupam would split her time. She was the anchor between anchoring and doing traffic reports. But we had a big team. I'd say there were about 20 people. There were 2 directors, an audio person, a teleprompter person, someone making graphics. All in all, there were about 20 of us on the morning show staff. Recession hits about 8 months into my TV career. I'm 23 years old when I started doing the morning show.
Just out of college.
Recession hits. We went from 20 people to 10 people on the morning show.
But still trying to do 20 people's job.
Exactly. So I became the producer eventually of the whole morning show. So I went from doing 1 hour to doing the full 2 hours. by myself. And I think in Fresno Market, I was the first producer to do a full 2-hour morning show by myself. I won't quote that, but I'm pretty sure I was
That's
the first
impressive.
producer.
That's
in
ASB
Fresno
quality talent right there.
Because 47 was the first to try that out, and I was the producer. So
like the guinea pig.
There's something to be said to quality over quantity, and that's really kind of what it was to save money.
Yeah,
Compromise.
And to this day, it's one producer.
Yeah.
They never went back. It was like, oh, well, this is temporary. Well, here we are 15 years later, and that second job never came back.
Oh.
So I did the morning show, did well with the morning show, and then got promoted to do the noon and 5 o'clock news.
Mm-hmm.
My first week on the 5 o'clock news, which is dayside is very different than morning show. The pressure is a lot higher. The bosses are all there. When you do the morning show, there's no bosses there. We didn't even have an executive producer. It was just me, 23-year-old Sarah doing the news. So
that's awesome. I love that.
But you bond with that morning crew. You're like a tight family.
You have to be.
When you do the 5 o'clock news, all the eyes are on you. All the bosses are there. All the salespeople want their thing done their way. And so pressure's a lot higher. My first week on the job was that tragic shooting, the sheriff's department on the way to Sanger-Minkler, the Minkler shooting.
Oh, I do recall that.
That was your first week?
That was my second day doing the
They were serving a warrant to
news.
someone, right?
Yeah, so I did the morning show for 2.5 years. But then my first 5 o'clock newscast, basically my second day doing the 5 o'clock news, which is a much bigger show, was the Minkler shooting. Talk about going from 0 to 60.
Real
on the
quick.
morning show, I'm running a 2-minute package. Package is a news story. I'm running a 2-minute package about weight loss and exercise. And then next thing you know, I'm producing this show full of breaking news with 3 live reporters and team coverage and satellite shots, and oh my god,
wow,
it was just like
throw her in.
And so the Minkler shooting, first week doing the 5, I thought Zara was gonna blow her mind having me produce her.
And mind you still have commercials. You still have a time frame to follow. You still have to make sure everything
And you got to
fits.
make everyone a producer.
I'm stressed out. I'm new.
A producer, it's a stressful job. You got to make everybody happy. The weather guy needs his time. The sports guy wants his time, because the producer has to be the one to say, "I'm sorry, Scott Mace, but you're only getting 90 seconds instead of 2 minutes," and they're not happy over that. They're not happy if you cut their weather time. Sorry, George, your sports story's got to go. Like, they're not happy about that.
You have to deliver the bad news.
You have to deliver the bad news. You have to call the reporter that's in reporters.
No,
What's that mean?
she's bringing back old memories. It's like
your issues are coming up.
Your time is 1:19. Sorry, I can only give you a minute. It's like, I got to shave 19 seconds off of this?
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
and then they're dealing with the photog's dealing with the reporter who they may not even get along with, and it's like a scene. Like, there's a reason they do movies about the news. It's because the news, the things I saw, and that's a whole nother. That's probably not.
It's off camera.
That's
stories.
off camera, but like the things that I've seen and experienced in a newsroom are like
is it like Ron Burgundy?
It's everything you can think of and more. It's every crazy story if you've read crazy stories, it's true. Because if the things you hear in New York, like controversial stuff with the news and Matt Lauer or whatever, trust me, it's true, because it happens here.
Oh,
so like the news is a crazy industry. It's just and it's a great industry. I love it, but it's all people who want to be on TV and big personalities, and then you've got the real journalists, and you've got the old timers and the new timers, and it's a mix of stuff.
And they say, Sarah, balance it all, figure it out
and
before 9 a.m.
the producer has to make sure that all of those people with all their personalities and all their drama get their job done and get it done on time and in the show. And then you have to be dealing with the anchors. And I worked with great anchors, but anchors can be divas too. So you're dealing with all their stuff. And, they do their own hair and makeup. They're doing their own thing. So they're doing that. Then you're hoping they read their script. If you spelled something wrong and they say it wrong on TV, they're going to yell at you because you made them look bad if you spelt it wrong.
Oh, the teleprompter.
Yeah, because you're the one writing that stuff. So producing the news is so yeah. This long thing started with what's a producer? A producer does
Everything.
it all. They're
New respect.
finding the file tape. You know, you want that old footage of whatever happened 10 years ago. You got to go find the tape. Now a lot of that's digital, but you know, when I was doing it, it wasn't. So I did the noon and 6, noon and 5, and then I eventually did the noon and 6 o'clock news. And our noon show won an Emmy Award.
I was gonna say that Emmy Award winning. Congratulations.
And you know,
That's
in a way,
good.
they hand out those Emmys like candy. But for us at Channel 47, it was a big deal at the time because 47 hadn't won an Emmy in who knows how long. And we were a standard def channel when everyone else was HD. And to win that Emmy for us was a really big accomplishment at that time. And Mike Scott was the anchor. Jenny Toasty did weather. And I knew that day when we did that show, I said that was a hell of a show, and I wrote down the day and everything because I knew I wanted to nominate it. Yeah. And I paid for it myself to nominate it for the Emmy, and our 4 of us went in on me and Priscilla Martinez and Mike Scott and Jenny Toasty. We did it. I did all the paperwork for it, and I love Chad, our boss, but he was like, I don't know, Sarah, like if you should waste your time trying for an Emmy because we weren't HD. We were.
Wait,
SD.
you apply for an Emmy?
Yeah, you submit your tape basically.
Oh, okay.
And we submitted our tape, and people would submit tapes all the time, and you never get nominated. But I just had this feeling about it, and so anyhow, we got nominated, and we beat Channel 30 and a station from Hawaii, and. Nice. Anyhow, for us, that was a big moment in 2012.
No, it's huge.
So we won the Emmy, and it was times were good at that point, and then the duopoly hit. So 2012, we were feeling like we were in a good place. We had overcome a lot of challenges that the recession had caused and created. And Linda Dana was our general manager, and she was great. I have nothing but respect for Linda, and we were having Christmas parties again, and they gave us all T-shirts, and we had jackets.
Love the holiday parties
with the 40, but that was not happening there for a while, right? And so then, you know, we were getting the jacket with the 47 on there, and we were feeling good about things. And even though news people are gonna complain no matter what. I mean, like we complain. We called it Bitch Fest Wednesdays. A group of us would go out and complain after the Wednesday newscast. But despite that, like you were having fun and you were doing good work that we were proud of, even if we complained. Yeah. And then we were owned by a company called Nexstar, and Newport Television. Mm-hmm. And I think Newport bought us because we were Clear Channel. I was hired under Clear Channel, and Clear Channel had to like sell off all their TV stations because the FCC, which regulates television and communications, radio as well, said it was not fair that Clear Channel owned television stations, radio stations, and billboards. You know, billboards are
But they say it was like a monopoly? Or?
They say it's a monopoly, so that it's not fair to the viewer, right? So they made Clear Channel sell off all of their TV stations. Well, Clear Channel sells it off, and then Newport bought us. And Newport was kind of like a financial holding type firm. They probably wanted to buy us for...
We were an investment.
Yeah. They probably wanted to buy us for a year or two and then sell us off. Yeah. But because of the recession, they had to keep us, I think, longer than they thought they would. And I kind of liked Newport. I mean, yeah, I think people like James were there before Clear Channel. So they were there for more of the glory days. I didn't have the glory days of TV in that respect. So for me, Newport wasn't so bad. They bought us T-shirts, a jacket. We had a Christmas party. It wasn't so bad. But they did finally they finally could sell us and liquidate their assets. And we got bought by Nexstar, which is a huge, they own hundreds of TV stations.
So Channel 30 is owned by Disney?
They are an O&O. That's unbelievable. And that's rare in the size market. Okay. So most TV stations are not owned by the network. So there's NBC, there's CBS, there's Fox, and ABC. those companies own television stations, but they don't own every television station. And the average viewer doesn't know that. They think if you work for NBC, NBC owns you. If you work for CBS, CBS owns you, etc. That is not how it is at all. They're owned. Some can be locally owned. Fox 26 used to be locally owned. The Pappas owned it.
Yeah.
It was a locally owned TV station.
It's just a brand. They buy into the brand. So if you own a McDonald's,
It's like,
franchise owner.
Yeah, franchise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a franchise. So you're a franchise. So how one Subway may have better bosses than the other Subway, right? It just depends on your situation. So it's a brand, and they make their money off of advertising. And so with the recession, I always say one of the biggest problems in advertising in the Valley was when Gottschalk's went under. So Gottschalk's Gottschalk's, the department store was a huge advertiser. So the revenue, Gottschalk's is not having ads anymore, hurt TV stations. So anyhow, just the way advertising changes. But we were owned by Newport. They sold the Next Star, and they put us all in a room, Photog Lounge, and they told us that they bought us. And somebody asked, well, you're known for owning multiple stations in one town. And they said they didn't plan to do that here. And I think within 2 months, they bought KC24.
Can we get the walk, walk, walk?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was bad. And all the lies just started.
And so they bought us.
Wait, okay, so is 24 and 47 side by side? Is that like the Niners and Raiders sharing a stadium?
Well, I mean,
is there rivalry?
Yes and no. TV stations compete with each other because you want to it's breaking news. You want to get the story before the other person. You want your report to be better than the other person. But we all get along. I mean, we all would go out together. I mean, I've been to many a party with people from every single news station. So I think in Fresno, we have a connection. We are a tight-knit group, but it is still a competition.
So one of the things that I remember, Sarah, as a producer, so Rob, say you're a producer, Sarah's a producer. A big breaking story happens, right? Yeah. So we photographers would go out because we're owned by both companies, both sides. We go out and we shoot it. Who gets the story first?
Oh.
Yeah. So you're in the same building. Well, and
you guys fight it out in the alley?
I never had to fight it out because I left before that.
You were like,
it got to the point to where you're like, okay, well, what about us? What about us? And it was back and forth.
And
well,
we weren't union.
Yeah.
47 was the non-union one, and 24 was the union. And that played.
You weren't protected.
That played. Well, it just played a role. And then the GM was the 24 GM, and the news director was the 47 news director. Yeah. So the GM's the boss. The news director's a boss, but the GM's the boss. So here they had kept the 24 GM and the 47 news director. So that made it probably pretty complicated too. But anyhow, I left before the merger. So they tell us it's going to be that they weren't going to buy another station. And then the next thing you knew, they bought another station. And not only did they buy the other station, they said, we're closing your station. So I remember when the 24 trucks came to 47 for the first time, I walked into the parking lot and there were 2 24 news trucks. I mean, that made you cringe. You just knew that the tides were changing. And so and
the veterans, because I was number 2 at 47 as a photog when you left. When we merged, I went from number 2 to number 9 because they were union.
And 24 had a lot of old-time photogs.
Old time. So they had all their vacations. I lost all of that. Seniority. Yeah. So Brian was ahead of me and so on. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't
a good time for any of us. So we had won that Emmy in 2012, and we were proud. And I loved Mike Scott. Mike lives in the Bay Area. I mean, in Morro Bay now. But Mike was Fresno famous. Mike's movies and all the fun live shots Mike would do, and he was well respected in the community. And he'd host, the cooking thing at the art museum and all the stuff. Mike was Fresno famous, like a Kopi would be. And Mike was, he got a nice send off, but Mike retired, and I don't think Mike wanted to retire.
And he got the golden handshake?
Probably. I mean, I don't want to break any news there for you, but Mike was kind of retired, and they gave Mike a really nice going away show, and I produced it. And we had a nice montage of his time at 47, and we toasted him, and there was a cake, and it was a really nice send off for Mike, which I'm glad they did that. A lot of times they don't even do that. It's like you were there one day and you're gone the next, and it was like you never existed. But Mike did get that nice send off. But I was producing Mike Scott's farewell show. It was 2013.
Okay.
June, I believe, of 2013. And I was in the control room waiting for the show to start, and I checked Facebook. And I got a random Facebook message from a girl I knew in college at Fresno State. So everything's connected, right? I got my job at 47 based on my internship at 30. And, everything is about relationship building. I'm a big believer in not burning bridges because you're building all these relationships. So I got a Facebook message from a gal I knew in college who told me she was leaving her job at Valley PBS to move to the Bay Area, and did I know anyone interested? And I wasn't looking for a job at the time, but with what was happening, because 47 was going to be moving by August into the KC24 building, and it's June at this point, or like November, whatever the case would be, whatever the timeline was. But I took it as a sign. Yeah. And I applied for that job at Valley PBS. And so
did you tell her I'm your gal?
Well, I said, I don't know, but I might be interested.
Oh, okay.
And so I applied, and I got the job.
Yay.
And it was to be a producer at Valley PBS, and I didn't want to take it. Because I loved I'm an only child. I get attached easily. I was very attached with my coworkers at 47. And, we talked about college earlier. I felt like I didn't always have that real college experience, like the going out and the living away from home and all of that. And I had all of that at Channel 47. Yeah. Channel 47, I was there 6 years.
And you had a crew.
It was my college experience because people came here from all over the country to work here. The reporters, I was close with a lot of the reporters. And the reporters would come live here, work here. They knew nobody. They had no family here. And I was like
the ambassador of Fresno.
Yeah. And so, I had...
What do you guys want to eat?
I had tailgates with 100 people at them. Like, nice. No joke. Like, I'd have these tailgates, and we would go out, and Alex Lamone would have these parties, Halloween party. There was always something going on. And that, for me, was the college experience that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and I was so close with all these people. But the sad thing with TV is people leave, especially if you're friends with reporters. They move on. So, they'll be here 3 years, their contract ends, they move to the next market.
It's like a junior college.
And at that time, when the station was selling and all that, a lot of my close friends had left. And now I was aging, I wasn't 23 anymore. And it's harder to be friends with the 23-year-olds when you're not 23, So it's always that young group really bonds. But if you're not quite that super young group, the vibe changes a bit. And so anyhow, I left 47 in August of 2013, and I started working at Valley PBS. And I was there for 6 years as well.
So I want to give our viewers a little reference for PBS. Sesame Street, The Electric Company, Morgan Freeman's first job. A little trivia there. There was like so many pivotal shows as a kid that I associate with Channel 18, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And so when you're making that transition, 2014 comes around, and I start this project called the Library for London Project. And I believe I get an email from one Sarah SOGHOMONIAN. Did I say that right?
That was me.
And I'm like, PBS wants to cover this story, right? And I'm all excited. And so we met. You guys did a tremendous job. And to your credit, I just want to give you props on camera that I feel like a big transition in terms of momentum and support for the project came from all the media coverage, local media coverage. And I want to say that Channel 18 sent somebody to almost every event that we had and did a little snippet on it.
That was me doing that.
Thank you very much. I want to just thank you personally. That was huge for us. And as you know, the library did actually come to be a reality. And I think
we were there for the ribbon cutting.
Yeah, you were for everything.
We followed followed the journey.
And I never forgot that. And that meant a lot to me. And so I think the constant connection and interest in following Sarah's story, a lot of it comes because you had a heart for something that was like my baby, and at a time when it wasn't as popular and wasn't a reality. So I want to thank you for that.
You're very welcome. That was the beauty of what I was able to do at Valley PBS. So I was a PBS kid as well. So I grew up with Mr. Rogers, and I was a big Mr. Rogers, big Mr. Rogers viewer, and Sesame Street, of course.
And you met Big Bird?
I did meet Carol Spinney. He came to Channel 18.
That
I
was
got
cool.
to meet him. That was a cool experience. Mr. McFeely actually sent me a letter from when I worked at PBS, because one of our CEOs at the time knew him and knew I was a
mailman,
fan,
right?
and got the mailman to give me a whole package of stuff.
Oh my God.
I believe in community journalism. Back when you go back to my writing, we're Dr. Gary Rice and writing for the Sanger Herald and the Madera Tribune. I believe in telling the stories of the Valley. And I really think that's why I got into journalism and didn't go the lawyer route. Was I wanted to change lives. I wanted to tell the stories of our Valley. I believe in Fresno. I believe in this community. I don't want people to badmouth my community. I want it to be a place where people are like, yeah, Fresno's got it going on. The Valley's got it going on. And that's why I got into media and didn't leave. I could have left many times. I was sitting at my desk at 47 one day, and a station from Denver called to talk to me because they wanted me to move to Denver and come produce the news there. I always had wanted to work at Channel 30. They called me 2 or 3 times for different positions there. My second day at 47, I had gotten a job offer to be a web producer at 30. And that was all I wanted, was to work there. And then I just started my job at 47. I wasn't going to leave it. And then to be a morning producer there, and then a weekend producer. And it just never felt right. So I stuck it out at 47, and I was glad that I did. And when I went over to PBS, I had this new opportunity to tell even better stories of the Valley, because with the news, you're fairly limited,
Yeah.
The news, especially when Nexstar bought 47, they were pushing a lot of like different state news, like from around the state, because they had stations in Bakersfield and all this stuff, and they wanted us to, run their stuff, and, a lot of like international news and national news. And I love all that stuff. I believe in being a knowledgeable person, but I wanted to tell stories of the Valley. And
Which
you can't tell
did.
you can't tell good stories of the Valley if you're not going to put time and money into your crew. So you need to have reporters, and you need to have photogs, because a 24-year-old reporter doesn't really know the Valley. So you need the James Chance, who's been doing it 20 years, to go out with the 24-year-old reporter to show them the ropes, so that they know who this person is, who the mayor is, what's the backstory on them, what's the story from 20 years ago. Because if you don't know the substance, the history, that poor girl or guy out there reporting, it's not going to be a meaty story. There's no depth to it. It's just the basic facts and not the depth. You need to know the history. And so a lot of TV stations just aren't investing in the people that have that knowledge to be able to do that. A lot of it's MMJ now. Like a reporter shoots and edits their own stuff. They don't even get a photog half the time. But at PBS, I was able to have the time to tell in-depth stories. In the news, you get your story at 10 a.m. and you're going to turn it around for 5 p.m. if you're a reporter, and it probably changes 2 or 3 times in that time period because a new story breaks and they move you to that one. So you don't have the time to really get as in depth with it. But with PBS, I had plenty of time. So there wasn't those daily deadlines. There wasn't a 5 o'clock show we were doing.
The frenzy.
So there wasn't that. So I had time to cultivate these relationships, to do my research, and it was really special. I got hired originally to do a grant project, and it was called Valley PBS Bayou, BYYOU. Probably not the best name, but the meaning behind it was good. The idea was that we would get people, like individuals in the community, to create videos that we would share on this website. It was kind of like a local YouTube. And that was really hard to do. And I was like, how am I going to find, and I had to reach numbers, it was a grant. So they wanted it was a James Irvine Foundation grant. It was a big grant. It was meaty, and there was a lot of stuff we had to cover. And so how am I going to find people that are going to make videos? Well, it's easier said than done. People aren't going to spend their time and energy to make videos for you when they could put it on YouTube and get ad revenue. They're not going to make no ad revenue with me. So excuse me. So I knew that high schools had video production classes. And I knew Sanker High had a video production class because they were one of the first to have it. And so I reached out to these high schools. So I reached out to Sanger High. I reached out to Madera South. I reached out to Sunnyside High. And I would go be a guest speaker, tell my story, and then they would provide me with kids' videos that I could then put on Bayou. But through Bayou, I also had the opportunity to go and produce content. So Oscar Speece and Oscar was a longtime Channel 18 photog. He was there for over 30 years. And
wow.
Yeah, big fan of Oscar. Oscar's a playwright, great man.
Yeah, he is. Yes.
Good.
Oh, you know Oscar?
Yeah, oh yeah. Everyone in the media.
It's funny because you're saying PBS, Channel 18, and Oscar. I got Oscar,
and he worked at Channel 30 at one time. Yeah, like Oscar from Sesame Street. So Oscar and I would go all over the valley, and we had to. And the neat thing about the grant was it was 4 different counties, and Valley PBS covers, Fresno County, Tulare County, Kern County, even. They go down into Bakersfield, Madera, Merced, Mariposa.
Oh, that's a big area.
It's a huge area. It's 6 counties that they cover.
And you had all that at your disposal.
And so I had to do so many videos from each of those counties. And so we would drive up and down the valley to cover local stories about community groups. And so PBS is heavily focused on arts, entertainment, and education. And so we would do art, entertainment, education stories. And I wanted to be able to shine a spotlight on the underserved communities and the untold stories. So the Library in Linden project, I saw something online, I think, about it, and I contacted you because that was a story about a small community that, frankly, a Channel 47 or a Channel 30 probably isn't going to go out to. They might, but there's a good chance they won't. And then that story doesn't get told. And we could tell that story. We had the time to drive an hour to go do it. We did a train museum in, I think, Porterville has this like famous train museum that we were able to cover. Art shows in Tulare, special education projects, the art center in Tulare that is for kids that are special needs, that do plays and things. Like, I was able to go shine a spotlight on all these nonprofits and these groups and do these videos that were between a minute and 10 minutes long, and we'd put them on Valley PBS and we'd put them online. And they were online, and they're still online. You can still find them. I
looked one up the other day.
You could share them. So then the other nonprofit or the other small organization was able to share their video. They could embed it on their website. That brings them attention. That gives them marketing tools. That gives them promotional capacity. And then it gave us content, because if you watch a PBS show, if you're familiar with the way PBS works, shows are different lengths. And so some of those shows, especially the British shows, they run on like Saturday nights, or Thursday nights even. They used to have a lot of British shows. They're short. They would be either 24 minutes long, or they'd be 46 minutes long. And a standard show on PBS is, I think, about 27 minutes-ish, and then 56 minutes. And you don't have commercials on PBS. You have what you call because you can't have paid ads. They're like sponsorships, viewers like you have sponsors. You can't really have a call to action. You could give how to get information, but you couldn't say like, come to this car dealership, we're offering leases at such and such a price. You couldn't give dollar values. There's a lot of rules with PBS because it's federally funded. At least a portion of it is. So a lot of that is regulated. So we needed filler. We needed a story that's 6 minutes long to put after that British show so that we could fill until the next show started at the top of the half hour or hour.
And those were all Valley shows.
And they were all local. And I produced those. I worked my way up. I eventually became the director of production, and I was able to pick and choose what stories we were going to put on there. And I made those contacts, and I would go field produce. And when you produce at a news station at 47, I never left the building. You're lucky if you have time to go to the restroom, let alone go on a field producing story. So producing the news, you're at your desk, you're in a newsroom, you're writing the news.
Yeah.
You're on the phone dealing with the reporters and the photogs. Producing at Valley PBS, you have a lot more creative freedom. You are field producing, meaning I'm going to the place. Yep. I'm doing the interview like you're interviewing me right now. I'm doing the interview. I'm doing the research. You don't see me necessarily on camera, but it's my interviewing, it's my storytelling, and then you work with your editor, your photog to put that story together. And so got to meet so many people. I mean, I will proudly say the time I spent at Valley PBS was a big growth period in my life. I met and networked and left there with a lot of relationships that I built. Look, we're here today. It's all connected.
I know, you're right. So before we switch to the educational part of your journey, I wanted to ask, meeting all these different celebrities or sports figures, what was your favorite interaction or interview with? Who was that with?
Well, PBS did open up a lot of doors for me to meet a lot of people. I mean, I've known every mayor since, Ashley Swearingen and then onward, and, Jerry Dyer we had in studio. We would do things with him. Congressmen, I've met a lot of the congressmen. I've met when Gray Davis was governor, I met him. Yeah. I got to meet, even when Obama was president, I was at that time when he came to the Valley. I was there when Air Force One came. So I've seen a lot of political figures.
Sports figures.
Yeah, when Trump had his rally here, I covered that. So I've seen a lot of political types. So that was always neat. But for me, the neatest is when you're getting to meet or interview somebody that's like part of your childhood, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a Yankee fan, a big Yankee fan. The late 90s, early 2000s, that's when I'm in high school, college. So Derek Jeter, the core four, all of that. Mariano Rivera, greatest pitcher, greatest closer of all time. I got to meet Mo. I got to meet Mariano Rivera. So he actually came to Sierra High School. James was a teacher there at the time. He told Andrew Martin at 47, hey, Tip, Mariano Rivera's coming to town. Andrew tells me, and I didn't have a photog that day. Oscar was out of town or something.
Oh, Oscar.
And I'm like, I'm not missing the opportunity to meet Mariano Rivera. I took an intern with me and we drove.
Grab that camera. Let's go.
Literally. And we
just hit the red button.
We drove to Sierra High and I got to interview him and meet him. And he even signed a ball for me and a shirt. And usually you don't want to do that. But I
actually shot for Andrew the day before because I grabbed a camera and he goes, do you mind shooting these interviews? I go, yeah, sure. So yeah, it was awesome.
Well, you were a teacher at the time.
Yeah, I was teaching.
Like, all right, let me go.
I just grabbed a gear. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Mariano Rivera came to a Sierra High School in the foothills, I mean, that was the greatest closer of all time. Later, after that, eventually gets in the Hall of Fame. First unanimous ballot pick ever. Even my Derek Jeter, one person voted against him. Whoever that person is was just jealous. But that was unbelievable. So that stands out. I met Rory Kennedy. That was pretty cool too. She did this outstanding documentary about the Vietnam War. She came and did a special here in Fresno. I got to meet her, take a picture with Rory. That was neat. I mean, I've met a lot of people, but sometimes it's just the regular Joes that I bond the most with. I've been on 2 honor flights, and I'm proud to say I've been on 2 honor flights. Paul Loeffler, who was a colleague of James and I at CBS 47, he was there when I first got started, is very heavily involved with the honor flight. And I went on 2 flights. Dr. Rice, part of that story as well.
So the honor flight, is that when the
veterans go to Washington, D.C. to see the war memorials. And so my first honor flight was in 2015, and Dr. Gary Rice from Fresno State, he was still at Fresno State at the time, he would send typically a student to do some articles for local papers, and he didn't have anyone, I guess, that he either thought would do a good enough job or whatnot, whatever the case may be. He asked me if I wanted to go. And so even though I was working at PBS, I went technically as a writer. And so I did several stories for print journalism, but I took a camera with me and we shot stuff for PBS as well. So went on that one in 2015 when it was still World War II vets primarily. And it was the first one they did with Korean War veterans, and met great people. I still keep in touch with a man named Wally Peterson. He's, I believe, 91 now. Oh, and Wally, I interviewed him, and he was a Korean War vet. He was the youngest one on the trip at the time.
91.
At the time, he was in his 80s, or I think he was 82 at the time when we went on the trip, but now he's 91. I just talked to him a month ago on the phone. Still kicking. Former art teacher at Hoover High. Great person.
Oh, okay.
But so he was a Korean War vet, but that trip was full of World War II and Korean War vets. They had women that had served in the military during World War II on that trip as well. Wow. We went to the World War II monument and all of that. So when you're with these are just regular people, no celebrity, but they were a celebrity in my eye. Like, I had the greatest time with those heroes. And did another honor flight in 2019 for PBS with Rigoberto Moran, who was the gentleman who used to come out and film and edit a lot of the pieces about the library project. And
is he still with Channel 18?
No, none of us are with Channel 18. None of us are. But Rigoberto and Jose Moreno, the three of us went on an honor flight in 2019, and we produced what was called Homecoming. Yeah. And it was a 30-minute documentary about Vietnam vets going on the Central Valley Vietnam vets going on their first honor flight. Yeah. And I mean, the experience of interviewing those men who had never talked about their story. Yeah. I mean, they some of them for 50 years had kept that story bottled up inside. Yeah. And I, as the producer, was the one who got it out of them. I mean, we interviewed these guys there in DC in front of these memorials at the hotel, in a little church on a Navy shipyard. And wow, I mean, it was amazing. And so I've interviewed a lot of vets. The PBS did a lot. I did those 2 honor flight things, but Vietnam War was a documentary that Rory Kennedy produced, and it aired on PBS. And through that, we did a lot of local stuff with Vietnam vets. And so I got to meet and interview countless Vietnam vets who shared with me their stories. 3 tours, 4 tours, getting Agent Orange. I interviewed a man with no nose, that, scarred from the war. I interviewed Vietnamese people, who fought for the U.S., who were on the U.S. side, and told me their story of how they came to the United States. Hmong, we have a huge Hmong population here, and that all plays a role. They fought for the U.S. during Vietnam. And so many of them I met and got to interview them. So, I mean, PBS, I did a lot of military stuff, super proud of. I did a lot of educational things with schools and a lot of art stuff. And I can say I'm very proud of all of those projects. And being Armenian, my Armenian Genocide Project, it was a 2-hour long film.
That's still out there, right? We can find that.
You can find all my stuff. I don't think they've deleted it. It's still out there. You can find it, but it's all there. And we raised a lot of money. My documentary, man, my Armenians, we call ourselves Highs. They came through. We raised over $50,000 on that Valley of Hope project for PBS local programming. And Vietnam doc we brought in people. I did a Jose Ramirez, I think that's his name, the went space, the astronaut. Yeah. Went to Sacramento, interviewed him, went and met his dad. We did a really neat piece about him. A lot of diversity. I believe in celebrating our community's diversity. PBS was a champion of that. So got to tell a lot of stories about our different cultures here that make up the Valley. So just really good stuff.
Do you recall? I know I saw this on PBS once. Charlie Trujillo, he had a book, and then he had a documentary that I thought aired, and I wonder if you had worked with him. It was called Soldados.
I can't recall that one, but I'll have to look it up.
Charlie Trujillo. Yeah, it's from Corcoran.
Okay.
But yeah, this along the same line.
Well, and that's what the beauty of PBS is, and what PBS should be is providing a local voice to those smaller groups that wouldn't be able to afford maybe advertising or aren't well known enough to shine a spotlight on them. I mean, anyone can do the big boy stuff or do these big projects, where you go out of the country and show a cool travel location. I mean, that's beautiful. But I like just going to these small towns and talking with the real people.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what the London thing was. And so you reaching out, I was like, wait, how did she find us? You were looking for stories.
I was
like
looking.
this.
I wanted to tell those unique stories.
Okay, so now I asked James this a few years back, but I wanted to ask you, what made you decide to make that transition to education?
Life is a journey, and there's ups and downs, and just like I didn't make the leadership team in high school or didn't win office. When things don't work out, you don't quit. You find your next door and you walk through that door. And a lot of people, when maybe they face adversity or things don't go right, or you feel like you were done wrong, or life got you, they curl up, and some don't fight back, and some don't look for their next joy. And when one door closes, I really believe in going and looking for the right door. You don't just walk through any door. You walk through the right door. Okay. And I had, through PBS, met a lot of educators and done a lot of stuff in classrooms. And again, I had served on a lot of boards for CTE, Career Tech Education. And so Sanger High and Madera South and Sunnyside, and I had gone out and spoke at Fresno High School, and I served on a Fresno Unified CTE board. And each of these CTEs are different. Like, they're funded a little differently depending on where you're at. So like Fresno Unified, I think kind of does their own thing, and they have their own internal team that handles their CTE. And Madera was sort of tied in with the Clovis one in some way, because when I would go to their meetings, there would be Clovis schools at it too, which was interesting. But Sanger's was different. Sanger's was more with the rural school district. So it was Sanger Unified and like Orosi and Parlier and Orange Cove.
Oh, wow. Didn't expect those names.
Yeah, so it's more of the farming community.
Yes.
And so it's called Valley ROP. And so I was an advisor for Valley ROP at Sanger High. Jean Crispianati, he taught that class for many years, did a great job over at Sanger High with their Apache notes. And that's a legacy program at Sanger High. People don't realize this, but this whole idea of having TV classes, that's like a new thing. It's like in the last really 10 years. But Sanger High's been doing it for like 40. So Sanger High had a TV department, video production, when no one had it. And so I knew that because I know a gal, Jill Simonian, lives down in LA, but she was from the Valley. And she had been a high school student at Sanger High, and I think had done the video class there. And I just remember her story and talking to her about it. So I knew it existed. And so anyhow, I had gone involved with Sanger High's program and was an advisor. And so Valley ROP called me one day, similar to my Channel 18 story. So Valley ROP called me one day saying they were looking for someone to work in Orange Cove. And did I have anyone that I could recommend? Because they knew me from my helping with this advisory committee. And I said, I didn't really know anyone. I had a name I gave them, but I said, I don't really know. But while I have you on the phone, what's going on with that new high school they're building? Are you guys involved in that at all? Because Valley ROP runs Sanger Unified's career tech programs. And so they said, oh, that's going to be opening in August. This was in like February of 2020.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So February of 2020, I have this conversation with Valley ROP, and they say that there's going to be this high school, and, it's opening in August. And they were surprised that I would be. I said, maybe I'm interested. And anyhow, I interviewed for it. And I interviewed for it like right before COVID hit.
Right around March.
Right around that time.
Yeah. And March 13th is the day school shut down.
Yes, Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
And anyhow, I got the job.
Yay.
And at the time, it was just a part-time job. It was kind of a risk. I took a risk. I'll be honest. It was a risk. It was a part-time job. It was to do 2 classes of an intro to multimedia and graphic design at this brand new high school, Sanger West. And I live 3 minutes from the school, 3 or 4 minutes from there. And it's.
Oh, so you live in Sanger?
Sanger West is not in Sanger.
Okay, that's not confusing at all.
Well,
where is it?
Clovis West isn't in Clovis either.
Oh my! Why do we do this? Where's it at?
So Sanger West is in Fresno, but it's Sanger Unified School District, just like Clovis West is in Fresno, but is Clovis Unified School District. So Sanger West is on Jensen and Fowler Avenue. And it's a beautiful state-of-the-art campus. We're gonna have our first graduating class this year.
Yay!
So I started there part-time
2024.
and quickly became full-time.
What's your mascot?
We are the Hornets, Sanger West Hornets.
The Hornets, of course. They have sports teams.
Oh yeah.
Who are they?
We're part of the NYL. I was the NYL when I was at Bullard too. So we're the NYL, North Yosemite League. We've got all the sports, football, basketball, baseball. Our softball team last year did great. Our cheer won our first CIF championship last year. Our softball team won league, and we've done quite well in some of our athletics already. We made football playoffs this year. Our soccer team's going to be making the playoffs.
What division are the sports?
We're like a D4 school.
Okay. Population-wise? How many kids?
We have about, I think, 12 to 1,300 students right now. So we'll have our first graduating class. We just had a rally in the gym today. It was full. You couldn't get enough seats. We were sitting on the floor.
Freshmen, sophomores, juniors.
It was a lot of fun. I love my school. I love Sanger West. It's been
Sanger West Hornets.
It's been a real blessing in my life. So I took it on a risk. COVID hit. I taught my first year being a teacher online. And I will tell you, TV made it a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was used to talk. When I worked at PBS, I did get to do a lot of on-air stuff. Because we would do pledge drives, and I was on a lot of those. Even though I produced plenty, I did a lot of pledge stuff too. And so I got used to talking into the camera, and talking into the camera was a lot like talking into my computer screen. And so I just fell in love with these kids, man, this first group especially. So I had 2 classes that first semester, and a lot. I have 28 pathways. So it's a pathway, video production pathway, digital arts and media pathway. There's 5 of those original kids I've had all 4 years of high school.
Oh, that's the
and
special.
28 of them, my first graduating class is 28 kids I've had for 3 of the 4 years, and some are my aides as well, so they're kind of 4-year too. So I just have a big love for these kids, and COVID and me being that it was my first year teaching, COVID, brand new school, it's just a real unique bond that we all have together.
Oh yeah,
because there was nobody older than them. They've been the oldest kids on campus the whole time.
Yeah,
and we built this program together. We do the Sanger West cast. It's our school newscast, and it's a real show. It's 28 minutes long. It's a real broadcast. We do once a month, and then we do a weekly This Week at West, and the Hive Sports Report comes out on Wednesdays. And I've modeled all of these things off of my past experience. So it's a mix of Fresno State Focus. It's a mix of CBS 47 On Your Side. And it's a mix of Valley PBS. It's a mix of all those things and new stuff that pops up. But I am teaching kids about the news. I teach them about news, journalism, how to write, how to interview people, how to talk. We cover the stories of our school, and I know I'm changing lives. I know it. Just like I wanted to get into TV to change lives. I used to end I don't know if James remembers this, but when we would do our newscasts after the 6 o'clock news, you go down to the news desk and everyone kind of gathers around and you do a post-mortem, like what went right, what went wrong.
Post-mortem, it's called?
Yeah. And then my joke, it was kind of a joke. It became a running joke, but our news director, Chad McCollum, would ask me like, okay, Sarah, how was the show? And every day I'd go, it was life-changing. And everyone would laugh. And part of it, we was joking, but part of it was true because the news does change lives.
Oh, yeah. Changed my life.
Education changes lives, giving children an opportunity. And so
Amen.
I know that these kids aren't all going to pursue TV, media, the news, but they are leaving high school a better communicator, a better friend, a better partner. The group work that they do, having to reach a deadline, having to commit to something. My kids don't miss deadline. We've never missed a deadline. And that's to get 15, 16, 17-year-old kids to get their work done. I mean, because they're committed to it because they believe in it. They believe in it. We have this bond. Our school, we have an outstanding principal, Samuel Polanco, outstanding. He was nominated for a...
Samuel Polanco. Where do I know that?
He's a Sanger guy. I mean,
is he?
He worked at Sanger High. He's originally from, I believe...
Danuba?
No, Carruthers.
Okay.
Great guy. And yeah, we have a good principal. And so he's really been big on this building connections. And so I think that's played a big role in our school. Like, we're just a really unique group, and we're really connected. And Sanger West is going places.
Oh, no, I see that. I mean, when I watched the show, I was like, wow, this is... Now, here's the thing that I really am happy about, to see you and Jim as educators. A lot of times, and this is no knock on anyone, but let's say, hey, I know you're in the English department, but we've got this new media thing we want to kick off. Do you think you could transition over? And so teachers do their best. They look at the textbook. They try to get some things going. But to have people from the actual industry come in with all your experience, producing shows, being on camera, et cetera, and James as well, all the work he's done, you guys aren't talking about a textbook. You're talking about real life. And that carries so much weight, I think, with students to be like, oh, yeah, no, Mrs. What do they call you, Mrs. So? Or?
Miss SOGHOMONIAN. Some call me Sogi.
Yeah, I heard Sogi. That's what I heard.
Yeah, my nickname. But they like that I come from the real world. They like hearing my stories. They see I use my stuff. I use my videos as a learning tool. They like that. I don't know if CTE is, California is putting a lot of money in CTE for a reason. CTE is important. My class is the class a lot of people get up in the morning to go to school for. And that's no knock on the other teachers. I mean, all of our teachers on programs are great, but CTE, whether that's a welding class, whether that's a engineering course, whether that's medical or criminology, all these CTE classes, they are a place for kids that maybe are lost in the shuffle or aren't really wanting college, and they want to learn a trade, and they want to, when I was in high school, it was college, college, college. I mean, we kind of were pushing, it was like college or nothing. Like, they didn't, if you said you wanted to be a plumber or an electrician, you were frowned upon. Those are high-paying jobs. We need plumbers and electricians, and you can provide for your family well doing those things. We pushed a lot of people into things that maybe they didn't want to be in. And so I think CTE is an outlet for kids to get this hands-on experience. And Valley ROP, who I work for Valley ROP, they do a great job with their CTE. They've been around, I think it's 51 years now doing this. So
that long.
Yeah, they're a real well-oiled machine. It's a good program. And so, it's just great. And so you had said location. So Sanger Unified was always a one city, one high school.
Yeah.
But the city of Fresno, that part of Sunnyside, that has always fed to Sanger Unified, going back 100 years. So the corner of Kings Canyon and Fowler Avenue actually has 3 school districts. one corner is Fresno, one is Sanger, and 2 of the 4 are Clovis.
How unique to have that.
Yeah, and it's all right there. And so I grew up on the Fresno Unified side of the road, but right across Fowler Avenue is Sanger Unified. And my Aunt Evelyn Bobigian, God rest her soul, loved the lady to death. She'll be gone 3 years this year. She was almost 96 when she passed. She was a Sanger High Apache. Class of 43.
Oh wow.
She grew up on Jensen and Temperance. So that country area that they call it Lone Star, that Lone Star area was always Sanger Unified. And now there's just so many homes that, they're building subdivision after subdivision. And so those kids need a place to go to school. And so instead of commuting to Sanger and, you can only fit so many kids in one campus. So that's why Sanger West was born. And
Sanger West, Hornets.
It's neat I live closer to Sanger West than I live to Sunnyside High. So even though I live in Sunnyside, for a lot of people in Sunnyside, we're technically closer to Sanger West, but you might be that Fresno Unified side of the road. So for me, this is the first time really there's been a high school in my neighborhood. And to me, to be able to teach at the high school in my neighborhood when I didn't get to have that, I didn't get to go to the high school in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Wow, what a dream. So I'm providing, in a way, something I didn't get to have for my students.
That's a beautiful thing. And I'm in the details. What was the school colors?
Blue and silver.
Silver and blue Hornets. I got to see that.
It's like a gray silver, yeah.
We
have our gym is, and you should wait till our big gym gets built. Like our school's still kind of under construction. It's built in phases, and so our gym is beautiful. But we're gonna have a bigger gym that's gonna even have a running track. I mean,
I did see you. Did you post something?
It was in our Westcast, so you probably saw it if you watched
okay, yeah, I remember seeing that in the aquatic center.
Oh yeah, man, move over, move over some. I mean, I think they'll have like state competitions at our school. Yeah,
wow.
No, it's gonna be beautiful.
So, I explained to you earlier about the channel, and one of the things that we like to do is inspire and also inform, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask, as we're parting, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's out there and just kind of going through it? And you said you had your ups and downs and come out the other side okay. Yeah. What was your mindset to get through those tough times?
Don't doubt yourself. Don't give up on yourself. Know yourself. No, when I did a lot of lunches, so my time at PBS, I will say, didn't end on the highest note. And I had to do a lot of soul searching. And I had met a ton of people when I worked there, and I had a lot of contacts, and I had a lot of business cards, and I did a lot of lunches. I did a lot of coffees. I did a lot of lunches after. I didn't just rush into my next job. I could have called Channel 47 and gone. They would have loved to have had me back as a producer. So I could have easily gone to a TV station and produced the news, but I felt like I had kind of gone past that at that point. And the market and the industry's changed so much. So I did a lot of coffees and a lot of lunches. And what I learned from the people that I spoke with, whether they were, the head of their organization, the marketing director, the PR person, I met with people from the city, hospitals, you name it, I met with. I probably did, I'm not joking, like 50 coffees or lunches. Not even exact. I did a lot. Like every day it was like a
network.
I did this for several months. My big takeaway was a lot of people don't like their jobs. A lot of people go to work every day and they're not happy. They don't like what they're doing. And I didn't want that for myself. And so I didn't rush into anything. I went back onto my writing. I have that in my back pocket. I can freelance write. I still do stuff for PBS out of Sacramento, so I still do projects to this day for KVIE.
Yeah.
And their stuff runs nationwide, which love KVIE. They're a great PBS station. That's the Sacramento PBS. So I was freelancing for them and writing for the Clovis Roundup and doing these lunches. And I learned that a lot of people don't like their jobs, and I didn't want to be unhappy. And I followed my gut, and I said, I'm going to give this a shot. So I took on a part-time job at Sanger West. I said, I'll try it for a year. And if I like it, I'll stay. And if I don't like it, I'll move on and try something else.
Yeah.
And so follow your gut. I told myself, give it a chance. I gave it a chance. I really fell in love with it, and it's been a blessing. And I have 150 children that I love. And so my message to people is, when the going gets tough, follow your gut. Don't give up on yourself. Surround yourself with good people, not people that are going to bring you down. There's a lot of negative people out there. And when things aren't going well for you, a lot of people want to rub it in. You know, sometimes people that aren't happy feed off of other people's misery, right? So you got to surround yourself with people that aren't going to be negative, that are going to build you up, that are going to support you. And if they don't support you, then maybe that's not the person to have in your life at that time, right?
Amen.
And so you got to keep a positive mindset, and, you know, don't be afraid of making mistakes. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. You're not going to win everything, you know? And then also, life is, I tell my students this all the time. Life is about choices. You can make good choices. You can make bad choices. And good people sometimes make bad choices. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. But if your decision is really a bad choice, sometimes you don't get a second chance, right? If it's a deadly choice, right? Yeah. So life is about choices. You got to make good choices. And I end that every Friday when the kids walk out the door. I say, make good life choices. Because really, you got to follow your gut and surround yourself with good people. I have a wonderful family. I rely on them quite a bit. But always knowing that you can achieve your goals. When I was a kid, we used to do field day at Ayer Elementary, field day, and you would compete in activities, soccer thing, basketball, jump rope, musical chairs, whatever. I think schools probably still do it, elementary schools, like an Olympics. And I remember the very first year we did field day, I signed up for all these different activities, and I didn't place in any of them. And I remember leaving really sad because I wanted to place. I wanted a ribbon, and I love the Olympics. I'm a big Olympic junkie. I wanted a ribbon.
Decathlon.
And I didn't have what it took for those activities. I wasn't first, second, or third place worthy. So I made a ribbon. I did out of construction paper, a blue ribbon. It said first place, and I hung it up on the wall. And this is I was 8. I've always been a deep person. And I looked at that ribbon every day, and that was my motivation to get better at the activity. So the next year when field day came around, I could potentially get a ribbon and earn the ribbon, not be given the ribbon, earn the ribbon. And I practiced my jump roping, and I practiced my basketball and all those things, and I prepared. And the next year I did well in jump rope. I'm a good jump roper. And I think I got first place ribbon in jump rope.
Nice, double dutch champion.
So the point is, you always have to have a goal you're striving for. And so if things aren't going well, find that goal and put in the work. You gotta want it. You gotta want it. It doesn't just happen. You gotta want it. You gotta work for it. If you want it, you can do it. But you've gotta want it.
Thank you so much. You guys heard it here on RobLive directly. Sarah SOGHOMONIAN. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to sign off now. And you were saying, why? I don't know you have a lot to offer. And this is one of my favorite episodes. I think it's coming out great. But we're going to end it like we always do, with love, peace, and chicken grease. This is RobLive, and we're out. Man, I learned so much.